Iran's next elected president will be facing a sea of challenges and opportunities. Some have existed for a long time, some are being handed down by the current government, and some have been added lately to the loads of issues that have impacted Iran's standard of living, government, and the public. These are challenges or opportunities to fix things, depending on how you look at it. Like the coronavirus epidemic, recession and financial market turmoil, deficit spending, the instability in the Persian Gulf and neighboring countries, mostly caused by the presence and influence of occupying extra-regional forces, and last but definitely not least, the issue of drought and water resources management in the country. At the moment, this election is to be primarily about Iran's economy. Financial problems are the people's biggest concern, and most people wanting to vote are thinking about different candidates' plans for different economic issues. I'm Leila Faramaizi, and you're watching Iran Today. The overall effect of 40 years of imposed sanctions and the coronavirus outbreak have had a severe impact on the Iranian economy. Diminished ability to use foreign reserves due to US sanctions has caused a major depreciation in national currency that consequently led to a surge in inflation. Jobs lost due to the coronavirus outbreak and an inflationary trend degraded social security, especially for folks who are financially vulnerable already. Accordingly, it is projected that inflation will be lowered but will stay over 20% overall in the midterm outlook, and that the next president of Iran is faced with persistent sanctions, growing government budget deficits and rising prices, which would put further financial squeeze on deprived families at the lower end of the socio-economic strata. Our economic problems are owed to domestic mismanagement as well as sanctions, which is why economists and bankers aren't exactly disheartened. Sanctions don't control the country's arteries. I got to put some questions to Mr. Zarqami, an economist and a person of position in Iran's financial sphere.
قطعاً مسائل مدیریتی هم
There is no denying that it has affected managerial issues as well if we consider the importance of management, because we saw an 8% economic growth under the same management system. We also witnessed 12% and 10% inflation rates. In fact, the sanctions can be disruptive, but managerial issues are also important factors.
The highly discussed dropping of sanctions by the Biden administration could result in a major change in all forecasts. The trade body called Institute for International Trade has projected that Iran's economy could expand by as much as under 4.5% in 2021 and could grow by under 7% in 2022 and 6% in 2023. That's if the next president of Iran gets to negotiate successfully a US return to the JCPOA or Iran nuclear deal, and if subsequently inhumane sanctions are finally eliminated. Mr. Mehrani gives us his views. He is vice president of the International Department of Parsian Bank.
No, I don't want to say that all of the process is so exactly the imitation of the banking system. The private banking is agile, if you wanted to compare with the state's bank. And you know, if you're talking about the private bank, that means we are looking for any other business model that can be doing in the time of the sanction. But if I must say, frankly with you, I'd say that fortunately we have found many solutions. And of course we have the strategic partner like the China or some other countries, and we are continuing our business with them. It's not so that we are saying that the limitation was there. JCPOA was a step forward. But at least we have done many of our business. If you're looking about the import balance of the Iran, you see that's the importer of there, and they are importing all the commodity that they wanted to do that. And the question is that, okay, how we can pay? We paid that. And it is so that's the limitation, and we say that some of the aspects was there, but at least I want to say that's okay, it's not so that 100% the limitation over there. And we have done it our business.
Iran's economy has been described as a mixed economy moving towards transitional economy with a large sector owned and operated by the government. According to macroeconomic analysts, it is the world's 22nd largest economy by purchasing power parity, with 10% of the world's proven oil reserves and 15% of its gas reserves. Iran, a founding member of OPEC, is one of only 4 countries in the world that controls over 150 billion barrels of oil and is referred to as an energy superpower. And on top of that, there are over 40 industries directly involved in the Tehran Stock Exchange, which, according to financial analysts, has been one of the best performing exchanges in the world over the past decade. OPEC, by the way, stands for Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries.
اقتصاد ما اقتصادی بوده تک محصولی.
We have had a single product economy that is completely dependent on oil revenues. The country has been spending much of its income on importing goods. This has gotten to the point where 80% of our imported products are intermediary, capital-based raw materials. Consequently, when the sanctions begin, the inflow of imported goods is disrupted, which impacts the domestic production sector. What's been happening in the past few years, especially after the sanctions intensified, disrupted the Iranian economy.
In recent reported surveys, Iranians were asked whether President Rouhani's policies have improved or worsened the strength of the Iranian economy, standards of living, and income equality. At least 6 in 10 said his policies have worsened these factors. Nearly 68% of Iranians say the economic situation is getting worse, a steady increase from 37% in May 2015. And asked about what has had the greatest negative impact on the Iranian economy, 58% point to domestic economic mismanagement and corruption, while 35% blame the sanctions. Extracted data from these surveys can be interpreted by presidential candidates as such: that more Iranians now expect the next government to find a way to steady the ship and fix the economic crisis by whatever means necessary. Mr. Raghfar is a prominent economist and university professor. Let's hear him out.
When Mr. Hemmati became the head of Iran's central bank, the dollar was priced at somewhere between 8,000 to 8,500 tumans. Mr. Hemmati increased that amount to 32,000 tumans. There is compelling evidence that the incumbent administration made that happen. Any other country in the world that doesn't have oil reserves to receive revenue from would generate income from tax returns. Our calculations show that the administration can collect taxes amounting to more than its public budget, obviating the need to sell oil. But this income can be generated only after the abolition of major tax exemptions granted to mostly semi-public enterprises. The beneficiaries of many of the tax exemptions are inside the government and the decision-making system.
In this respect, there seems to be a demand for effective negotiation with world powers to relieve the country of the inhumane sanctions. Honest, competent management of the country, free of corruption, is also strongly visible on the list of expectations of the majority of Iranians. Based on a report by the International Monetary Fund, IMF's Middle East and Central Asia Department, economic growth in the Islamic Republic of Iran is expected to recover due to rebounds in domestic consumption and tourism and moderating disruptions from COVID-19. In light of these developments, it has been recommended that the next president would consider improving financial inclusion and reforming the financial sector and state-owned enterprises as a priority, as well as providing more space for the private sector, which would help create jobs. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching from the whole team. Do return to the box at the same time tomorrow, as we'll be covering foreign policy challenges of the next president then. For now, bye.